The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everybody, welcome to this webinar from Protel Associates. My name's Jack Turner, Head of Sales and Marketing, and I'm joined today by my colleague Debbie Broom.
Hi guys.
So today we're going to do a quick session talking about some new features that we've introduced on MyProtel, and we're also going to get into a bit of a question and answer session as well. So what's really important today is that if you do have any questions on anything that Debbie or myself mentioned today regarding MyProtel or the CRM features or anything else to do with MyProtel generally, use that question pane on your control panel to submit a question to us, and we can have a look and answer that today. We obviously won't be able to get through all of the questions that are submitted today, so please submit them anyway, and we'll get back to you afterwards if we don't manage to get to it. We've still got a few people arriving, so we'll kick off in a few minutes. Just to give you a bit of an idea on the running order, we'll be starting off with Debbie talking us through some of these new features, these CRM-like features. Don't worry too much if you're not sure what CRM is. We're going to go through it in a very sort of Protel way today, so hopefully it should be very specific to what you're trying to achieve and do on the MyProtel system. We're also going to look through our Protel analytics system very briefly as well. And then, we'll get to as many questions as we can and hopefully keep the runtime fairly brief, sort of 40-45 minutes if possible. Okay, so let's get the screen going. As well, guys, if there are any issues with the audio or the visuals or anything like that, then please put that in the question pane as well, because then we can hopefully adjust them on the fly, and we should be good to go. All right, so thanks very much for everyone who's arrived so far. Just as another piece of housekeeping, the recording of this session will be sent out in an email. I think it's about a week after we finish the session, so it'll go out next Thursday. So you can review it at your leisure and also send it on to any colleagues who weren't able to attend. And anyone who couldn't attend today live will also get sent that. So no worries there. Okay, so thanks very much. And with no further ado, I shall hand over to Debbie to talk about CRM features. Debbie.
Thank you, Jack. Hello again, everybody. We've chosen to run this webinar today because we wanted to highlight some of the additional features we've introduced on MyProtel. Towards the end, as Jack said, we'll also make you aware of a couple of other things that we think you might like, that you might not be aware of, that will be beneficial to you. So if you can hang on to the end, hopefully there'll be a few other bits too. Hopefully most of you will know that we like to spend a lot of time talking to our subscribers, working with you. Some of you just like to get on with it, like to be left alone, like to use the system and the data very much in your own way. Others like to speak to us very regularly. As a result, we always encourage lots of feedback from you, whether that be about the data, the system, the service itself, whatever. You, after all, are the ones that are using it on a daily basis, so all feedback is good feedback to us. A lot of the changes we've made to MyProtel over the years have come about as a result of the feedback. You telling us what would improve your experience when you're using it. The MyCRM features we're going to talk about today came about in a very similar way. We established that a lot of you utilize an internal CRM or database, but most of you wouldn't want to input all of our leads into that system, preferring to have validated and warmed it up prior to inputting it into the system. There's nothing worse than cluttering up your database with all this information that then has to be kept clean along the way. So we felt that this left a gap. How do you manage your leads prior to that point? How do you manage them before you put them into your system? You're all using different ways. Some of you use a little black book, some of you use your mobile, whatever. But we hope and we think that MyCRM actually does fill that gap for you. It provides you with a means now of tracking in an efficient way. The data is all retained in one place. You have total visibility amongst your team. And by team, I mean your other account holders within MyProtel. So you can all see who's doing what. And you can all be individually reminded, if you want to be, of any activities and actions that you put into the system. So hopefully you don't have to remember. We're actually doing that work for you by reminding you of things. So anyway, enough of the talking. Let's go in and have a look at the features.
Let's dive in.
Let's dive in, and then we'll show you how to utilise them. As Jack said, please do ask questions. along the way. If I fly through something and you notice something else, it doesn't have to be just about my CRM. Any questions at all, we're very happy to take them. And as Jack said again, if we can't answer them today, we will obviously come back to you at some point. So it doesn't have to be about just what I'm showing you today. If there's something else on the system or something you wanted to ask about, particularly about projects, whatever, just shout, okay?
Yeah, and sorry, Debbie, the way to do that, guys, is on your control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, there's a tab which is entitled Questions. There's just a little chat box in there. If you just submit your questions in there, that sends it straight to us, and we'll get to them as and when they come in. Sorry, go on.
Okay, so I'm hoping that you're all seeing us okay. I'm hoping you're all hearing us okay. So let's get on with showing you. Obviously, you've all been using this system for a while, so you'll know very much about the data, etc. I'm just going to go into the latest project updates, and I'm going to randomly select a project, guys, just to show you the features. So not anything in particular. I'm just going to pick the first one. Okay, so we'll open up a project. This is the toolbar that we're going to focus on today. So you've been through, you've looked at our projects, and you've decided that this one is for you. This is one that you're interested in following up. The features that you can use new are these down the bottom here. So this is a project for you. You want to be the salesperson that's actually going to look after this. So you want to assign yourself to this project. The reason for doing this is it enables other people within your team to actually see that you're taking ownership of this project. That's the first thing. So if there are sort of 5 or 6 of you all using this system, to ensure that you don't tread on each other's toes, it is a useful means of actually assigning this with your name. So you do that by clicking on this button here, which is meant to represent people. People sort of ask me what it is, but actually it is meant to represent a number of people.
The best one I've had is somebody thought it looked like a cat's paw, which I thought was quite interesting.
I can see that.
It'd be pretty abstract,
we've had all
but,
sorts.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you've clicked on that button, and then you see this button here, guys, which says Claim Project. So by claiming that project, that has now put your name on that project. So anybody within your user group can see that you now have ownership of that project. When you claim a project, the other thing it automatically does for you is it actually puts a track. So it's saying up here, successfully assigned and tracking switched on for this project. I'm sure most of you will know what tracking does, but basically what tracking does, for those that may not know, is it actually puts a watch on it, and as we update the project, we will update you via email to let you know it has been updated. So it means you don't have to keep remembering to go and have a look. The system is actually doing that work for you. And just a quick note on that, I know a lot of you get lots of emails and don't want to feel as though you're being spammed with lots of emails. If we updated 10 projects today that you were tracking, actually you would only get 1 email at the end of the day with 10 links. So don't be frightened to actually claim projects and to track them, because actually it is really useful. As I say, it means that we're sort of coming to you and saying, hey guys, look, this project's now been updated.
So you just sort of get that once a day, or is it once a week, Debbie?
It's once a day. So if you're tracking lots of projects, you might sort of get something daily. If you're tracking less, whatever volumes you're tracking, you might only see something infrequently, but you will get that email. It will have the links, and then you can go through and click on in your own time, at your own leisure. You can go through and look at the updates we've put through the system. So by assigning, just to summarize, by assigning it to you, you will automatically get tracking switched on for that project. Okay. Once you've assigned the project to yourself, you can then actually start to diarise yourself some actions. And this is where we think it will be really useful, where you're not using a CRM, where you're not then having to remind yourself to do things, because this system is going to help you. It's going to remind you. So we have 2 things here. We have actions and we have notes. I'm going to actually create an action on this project. So I want to do an initial fact find. And excuse my typing. So I'm going to say, right, I want to do an initial fact find, and I'm going to do that on Monday. I haven't got time to do it today, and that fact find is going to be, have they used us before? And that will do. So you're basically, just to give you a prompt, basically you're going to do everything you need to do to find out whether you want to actually do that. So I'm going to create. What that has now done is that's diarised an activity in the system. And you see this little blue time here, it means it's in the future. So we now have a diary action. On the morning of the 13th, you will get an email from us to remind you that you have put this in the system, to remind you to do it. So again, you're not having to remember. So you go through. If you've then made the call, so you go through on Monday, hopefully, you make that call or you do that initial fact find, you can then put notes in the system. You can actually store your data in here. So you can put initial fact find results. And again, excuse my typing because I've missed an I out. Sorry, guys. Okay, and then, I mean, I'm not going to type anything, but you can put in whatever you want into this system. Just as a note here, again, this determines the fact that you are in a group, so all of your users can see this. So we have automatically defaulted public, so that means that you are sharing all of your data with your group members. If you did want to have that note visible just to you, you could actually make that note private. But to be honest, it's quite useful to have it shared. So we're going to create that note. Okay, so we've actually done an action. We've created a note. Assuming this is next week, guys, we now want to say, right, we've done our initial fact find, so we're going to re-diarise a sales call.
So would you edit your existing one there, Debbie, or could you make a new one as well if you wanted?
You could make a new one if you want to keep a sort of an audit trail of any calls you've made. It's entirely up to you.
And if you wanted to do that, would you be able to complete an action, say?
Yes, you can. Down here on the right hand side, you can see, you can mark as done, you can delete, you can do whatever you want. It depends whether you want to run with an audit trail, guys, whether you want to see every call you've made or whether you're happy to just update that initial action. This system is flexible for everybody. What we're not trying to do is to tell you there's a right or wrong way of using it. Some of you will use some of it, some of you will use all of it, but it's entirely up to you. What we're trying to do is come up with a system that enables you to have total visibility within your team, that enables you to actually schedule yourself an activity, have us remind you about that activity, so you're not having to remember. Obviously, you're on the road a lot, presumably you're out visiting customers, and to actually constantly have to remember, oh, I meant to do that today, whereas this system is hopefully making it easier for you. And it's also keeping all of that data in one place. So that's the benefit. So just to show you that there is this tab here, guys. So we've done these three bits here. We've claimed a project, we've created an action, and we've created a note.
Just before you move on, Debbie, we've got a question that's just come in. Is it possible to assign an action to other team members?
If you are a group administrator, absolutely, Steve. So yes, if you actually are the person that owns, sort of is group administrator on the subscription, that person can go in and assign leads to any member of their team. If you're not group administrator, you can only claim a project for yourself. Okay, so it's entirely up to you whether you need to have more than one group administrator or whether it is just the one. But yes, as an administrator, one person can assign to anybody.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing, isn't it? Is that the way your subscriptions are structured, guys, is that, you know, Debbie's talking about your group and that sort of thing. And really, generally, we'll have one or more subscription administrator users. If you're not sure if you have one or not, just get in touch with us and we can check that and assign those privileges out to whoever is deemed best appropriate. And then there's slightly different permissions on the CRM for those different levels of user. So those group members and then also that admin user as well. But we can go into that later on.
Yeah, I mean, as an admin user, you can actually, have more flexibility. Here, just to show you guys, there's a little button here. You can actually, if you wanted to, for whatever reason, you can actually print your actions. So if you were going to be out for a week or so, you might not have internet access, and you just want a summary of what you've put in the system, you can actually print them, export them out and print them. So if you wanted to use that.
Good for sales meetings and things like that, isn't it? Where if you want to sort of go through what everyone's done and that sort of thing. Yeah,
and the same with notes. I mean, I've put rubbish notes in here, but that could be a really comprehensive note that you might, like Jack says, you might want to take your notes to a sales meeting. So when you're asked, you know, what's happening on X, Y, Z, you can say, well, I've done that initial call. This is what I found. I'm now scheduled to do a sales call. This is where we are with that project.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't recommend that you take this note into the sales meeting. Like a few odd looks from your colleagues.
It's because my typing, because I know everybody's watching, so my typing was going to be bad. So we put rubbish in. But to show you how it pulls it all together, guys, this tab here, My CRM, which some of you might not have noticed, is where you can actually see all of the data within your team. So, I mean, this is obviously a Protel team, so you can see we put some dummy actions in here. But if you scroll down, you start to see who's looking after what project, which is how it would work well within your sales teams and your business development team. So, the green, basically big tick, means that action has been done. Down the bottom here, you'll start to see some pending actions. So the red means they're overdue. Okay, so we don't want too many red ones. And the blue ones are the ones that are actually in the future.
Yeah, and is the green tick, that's when they've been marked as done, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So you can see, I mean, when you're following this up, guys, you might actually start warming up a lead and find it's not for you. So you might just mark it as done and move on and unassign yourself from that project. And obviously that's done, that's sorted. So, not all of these actions are going to lead to you actually wanting to take that data further into your own system. This is a means, as we say, of actually tracking what you're doing with that lead in a very nice sort of clear way. We're using our system to remind you, to help you, so you don't look at a project one week and think, oh gosh, what was that project? By claiming it and putting a watch on it, we're driving those activities to you rather than you having to log in and remember. So for us, it's a scheduler, guys. It's a means of actually scheduling your activities in one place, keeping it all nice and tidy. And it's great, as I say, for where people sort of, want to see who has ownership of which project. Yeah. It adds visibility to your team.
It's avoiding that duplication of effort as well, guys. We're making sure that there's visibility here. And I think on that note, we've got a good question here from Gary, Debbie, which is, if information on a project is gathered that might be sensitive, is this reshared in summary to the general public in project updates, i.e. can Protel view any comments and notes? So on this one, all of your data is your own that you're inputting onto the CRM system. Obviously, members of the Protel team have access to that for administration and subscription management reasons. But other than that, we will not be looking at or using your information. So when we say public and private with regards to notes, for example, that means public within your subscription group. So only internal people in your company that have subscribed to Protel can see those public notes. Private notes are just for that individual user. And then with actions, that information in the notes there, if you are tracking your progression through your initial fact find or your sales call, or even putting in notes about a meeting you may have had or whatever, that's shared within only your user group. And the reason for that is to avoid that duplication of effort. We want visibility to make sure people are working on their assigned projects, etc. All of the sort of usual CRM benefits. But none of that will go further than your own individual users within your organisation that you've nominated. So there's no worries there from that point of view. Sorry, Debbie, go on.
No, that's fine. That was a good question, because obviously, it is sensitive, but it is private to you.
Yes.
By public, we just mean public as in within your group. So very private to you. So I mean, that's basically, in a nutshell, it looks very simple. That's the main function. So you can assign a project, you can add actions, you can add notes. And you have this summary sheet of what all of your team are doing, so you have total visibility. It's very much there because it was driven by people sort of saying that, we need a means of actually tracking and capturing this data. Can we do this? Can we do that? And we very much provided this to fill that gap. We know that once you actually get to a certain point in the lead, you will probably want to put that data into your system, which leads me on to the next thing, which was just to say that if any of you do have a CRM or a database and you do need to extract data out of our system, I'm not sure how many of you are aware, some of our customers do use this, but we are able to actually work with you to create an export on a weekly or monthly basis tailored to your needs. So we have found that a lot of people don't want to mass export, but some people would like to take the data out of our system and put it into their own. That's fine. We can work with you to do that. So if anybody did sort of say, right, this is great, but when we get to that point of exporting that data, how do we do that? Talk to us, and it could be that we can work with you to actually come up with a system that will help you to get that data out. So
I think, something I wanted to highlight actually is that, as Debbie's mentioned, you've got this kind of central MyCRM hub, which contains all of the assigned projects and who those projects are assigned to. Just as a point of order, you can assign projects to more than one person in your group if you want to, if you've got multiple members of staff working on a project. But then we've got a different view and a different way to access the CRM features, which Debbie went through the individual project screen. So when you're searching, when you're looking at your latest project updates, you're sort of doing that initial qualification, looking through, is this a good project for us? Is this a juicy prospect? You're clicking through, and then here you are also able to interact with those CRM features. So you can claim projects, or if you're an administrator, assign those to members of your group. And also there's a little heads up here with these floating numbers. So if it's been tracked, for example, the icon changes, and the same is said for these CRM buttons. So you can see how many users are assigned to it, and then how many actions, how many notes. So here we can see it's assigned to one user, and it's got one pending action. If it's completed, that doesn't show up there. And then equally, it will be the same for notes. So I think the central message here is that with the CRM features, there's lots and lots of different ways you can use this functionality. As Debbie said, we're providing a toolbox based really on feedback. People wanted to track and monitor their interactions as they were approaching and selling. And we're hoping that this just gives you the ability to do all of that within your existing processes and the way you like to work. You know, we're not trying to be too prescriptive today. We're just sort of, and I think Debbie's really done that, is go through these functions with you and show you what you can do. And then, of course, work with your account managers at Protel to apply that into your specific use case, you know, how you want to apply that. And I think, as Debbie mentioned, we've got a slightly more involved data export, which sits separate from the CRM side of things, which will allow you, if you wish, you have your own CRM system internally. If you want to get data, project data, contact data straight out of MyProtel and into your own system, we do have a mechanism through which you can do that as well. But for those of you who want an additional layer of functionality that sits between MyProtel and the new project intelligence that you're receiving from us, and your own internal CRM system, we have these new features available. And Debbie, you were saying that that's kind of where you see this fitting in quite well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think from talking to people, obviously I'm one of the account managers, and I spend a lot of time working with new associates and existing associates, training them, showing them. And I find that most people, once they've been shown it, think, yeah, that's going to work wonderfully at those initial stages, those stages when you are doing that fact find, identifying whether the project is for you, whether it's one you're going to go forward with. And it's just a great way of capturing that data. And also because we're driving that information through to you. So we're reminding you there isn't that need for you to have to keep remembering. So yeah, I think that's where it fits. If you aren't using your own CRM and database, that's fine. Carry on using MyProtels for as long as you see fit. There's nothing to stop you using it. But I think from experience of talking to a lot of people, we do find a lot of people at some point want to take the data from MyProtel and put it into their own system. And this is that go-between. This enables you to monitor and watch and keep an eye on things until that point. You don't want to be cluttering your own CRM with mass exports of data that then is an absolute nightmare to keep clean, because it's projects that aren't relevant, or it's contact details that then you have to cleanse in the future to make sure those people are still there, etc.
When we're working with some of our associates, and Debbie spends a lot of time, as she says, training individuals on how to get the best out of the system. And I think what's really important to focus on is that we're always encouraging a very precise and qualified approach to this project information. You know, we don't really recommend necessarily, as Debbie says, that kind of mass export, and then you're just sat on too many leads. You know, it's unworkable. There's no visibility. There's no way to introduce accountability with those leads with your team. So things get lost. They fall through the cracks. And in that situation, we always say, you know, too many leads is just as bad as not enough in that instance. So, you know, between the MyCRM side of things, we're hoping that will just allow you to be very clinical and, well, really quite fussy, I suppose, with some of those projects. You know,
we always say less is more. And, you know, we know that common pitfall is volumes. So be very focused. This allows you to drill down, find those leads, action those leads that you want to be following up, whether that be 1 a month, 2 a month, tenor months, but it allows you to have visibility of those that you're working on, and as I say, to set yourself reminders so you don't lose sight of things. And and visibility amongst your team is really key, so everybody can see what everybody's doing and who's looking after what. So I'd say hopefully it fills that gap quite nicely.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got another couple of questions coming in. Guys, keep your questions rolling in. We've got some time left to get to some, so if you have any thoughts, concerns, comments, questions on MyProtel or the subscription service, then fire them over and we'll do our best to answer them. Question here from Mark Debbie. How accurate is your information when it's published?
We like to think it's totally accurate, Mark, to be honest with you. But, I always put a caveat on that contact-wise. If somebody leaves on a Friday and we've published on a Wednesday, then we may not capture that straight away. So much, there's only so much we can do. But in terms of accuracy, yes. I mean, we work very hard to actually capture this data. We will almost disprove a project rather than publish something that was over-speculative. At the same time, can we sometimes get it wrong? Maybe we can. If we do, flag anything up to us. And on that note as well, I mean, talking about accuracy and projects very specifically, if ever you have a query or you want to talk to one of the researchers about a project, you have a concern, you want to understand what the sensitivity is or the contacts, there's not quite sort of where you want them to be, always you can contact us via this button here, which sends an email through to the researcher. We can just pick up the phone and we'll have a chat with you. You don't have to struggle. And if you do ever find anything that is not totally accurate or you have concerns about, again, don't sit there and get frustrated. Flag it up. We will check out that data and we will work with you to make sure that we answer your queries.
Very good.
Okay. So yes, we pride ourselves on our accuracy, Mark.
So. Question from Steve. There are many CRM tools out there. Do you work with all of them with your data extraction? So, good question. The format in which the data export is delivered is just a standard CSV file, a database export file. So, that will go into pretty much any off-the-shelf CRM system that you can think of. They're all set up to accept imports via CSV files. I don't think I've come across one yet where that hasn't worked. The process that you'll go through if you decide to go for the data export with your account manager, and this is really where the effort is required, is that we need to map out the shape of that data export so that it will slide into your CRM system in a way that allows you to plug that data straight in. If you're using Salesforce or whatever, it needs to be structured in a way that will make sense to Salesforce, and then therefore will allow your team to start working on it straight away, to assign it to salespeople, to start creating actions and all that good stuff. So there is a bit of back and forth required if we do decide to go down that data export route, but it's well worth the effort because it means that en masse you can get, or not en masse, depending on your criteria that you decide to go through with your account manager, you can get that project information in and start working on it using all your own existing sales processes, which there's a lot of value to that.
If you imagine looking at the project bulletin, Steve, basically every one of those lines is a different field of data which can be mapped into an export. So you can choose not only what type of data you want, so you want pharmaceutical pre-sanction, but you can actually choose which bits of data you want to import, and then we would create a template with you, slot that data in and deliver it to you so that you can map it straight in. So it does take a little bit of toing and froing, and we do deliver a test and then you import it and then we tweak, but once it's set up, as I say, it works very, very well. And, again, everybody uses it differently. We have some that sort of want every single project exported that is new each week. We have others that are very selective and only want a project that's sort of moved into sanctioned or whatever. So yes, it's mapped in a way that works for you. So we can change column headings to match with your CRM, etc. So it's made as simple as possible.
Question from Graham. How do leads appear in my CRM? Do I have to put them there or is it automatic? So I think what we'll do is we'll just go to the search page to demonstrate this. But basically, Graham, the way it works is that as you're going through your usual browsing, whether you do that via the search page and building searches, so, let's look at a little search here for example, we're looking at lists of projects, we're browsing through. Say, for example's sake, this is one that's relevant to us. We would then be able to add that into the CRM system by assigning it to one of our subscription group members. Okay, so that's the way that they will appear in my CRM.
Yeah.
If you don't interact with it or you decide not to make too much use of it, I would assume if everyone's here today on the session, they're hoping to make some use of the CRM features. So that process begins when you assign that project by clicking the button. And you can either claim that for yourself, or if you're the admin user for your subscription group, you can assign that project to another salesperson or MyProtel user within your subscription group. So it's it's sort of as you're going through your usual tasks and processes on MyProtel, you've now got this sort of extra layer of functionality that you can use and get them into that CRM side of things.
Yeah. So every time you open a project, Graham, you will have this toolbar, and then you can decide whether you want to actually put that into your CRM or whether it's one that you might archive because it's not relevant. So yeah, every project you open up will have this toolbar, and therefore you'll have these 3 buttons. So that's how you actually claim that project, and it sits in my CRM for you.
Another question here, will you be inputting project names? Description client name doesn't work for some CRM tools in existence that use project names. I think where possible, we are putting project names.
Yeah, I think you'll tend to find on pharmaceutical coverage often because of the size of the sites, they will have individual project names, and I think you'll often see that. I think it's very sector biased whether there is a project name. If we can get it, Amy, we will always try and get that project name. I don't know how else to answer that other than to say that if we have access to it at that early stage, we will. If we actually get it later on as the project develops, again, we will update, or we'll make sure we make a note to say to the research team always to include a project name if there is one. But I think we pretty much do that.
Yeah, we're trying where possible. And I think there's nothing stopping individuals assigning kind of their own project aliases if that's a field that's required, for example. I know that's not ideal. But as Debbie says, where possible, we are including those project names.
Yeah.
Okay, keep those questions coming in, guys. We've still got a bit of time to fill. So
I think we've probably pretty much covered the My CRM. I mean, unless you've got any more questions, guys. But I think with anything within MyProtel, I always say to everybody I do this with is just to go away and play, put a few in the pot, see what it does, put some dummy notes in. You can complete them, you can delete them, you can do whatever, but it's all about sort of getting it to work for you. There's no right or wrong way in using MyProtel. Everybody uses it differently, but it's there to hopefully enhance and to help you and complement your business development activities. So use it to do that if you can. There was something else that we wanted to move on to, which actually isn't anything to do with My CRM, but it's something that while we've got you, which we think you might all like to see, and that's a system that Jack's going to quickly talk you through, which is called Protel Analytics.
Yes, so we launched Protel Analytics some time ago now, and we've actually the idea was that MyProtel allows us to look at individual projects, and obviously we've got all that contact information, all of that scope information there for kind of sales and potentially marketing and business development related tasks. Obviously, it's something that we're looking at on an individual project basis. So the idea with analytics was, well, we've got all this many years of project data sitting there. Is there a way that we can create a piece of software that looks at all this information on an aggregate basis? And so analytics was the result. Now, I'm really pleased with it. I think it's a really useful system. We use it loads internally, really just to interrogate the project database from a slightly more zoomed out point of view. So you can see it now on your screen here. We've got several different statistical views. Now, all of the data is taken from MyProtel. So you've probably used a lot of forecasting software in the past, or bought reports that give you kind of industry outlooks and that sort of thing. And there is value in those things. But what's interesting about analytics, in my view, is that this is based on our individual researched project opportunities that we're following through their life cycle. So this is not a forecast necessarily in the strictest sense of things. This is actually based on reality, which is really useful, I think, from a kind of reporting and managerial and analytical point of view. So we won't go too much into all of the features today, but if it is something you think you could use, i.e. you've been asked to write a report on market sizes, on investment shape and speed and all that stuff, we can do that now using analytics. So yeah, do get in touch.
Yeah, just shout really. I mean, it's there for, I mean, we don't see it as something you would perhaps use on a daily or weekly basis, but often we get people that ring us and say, you know, we're putting together a business plan for my boss, you know, have you got any statistics that might help me? And that's where this would really sort of help you, because you can actually look at the various sectors and say, right, this is what Protel is forecasting is happening in this area. You can break it down as Jack's doing on the screen, by region, by sector, any number of things. So if you want a very, very good overview of what's happening based on Protel's projects, and that's important to say. It isn't capturing data outside of Protel. It is capturing the data that's based on our project. So it's taking the live data within MyProtel, putting it together, generating some nice snazzy charts for you, which will, as I say, hopefully help you in any forecasting, help you in your business plan, etc. It's there for you to use if you feel that you would like to utilise.
Yeah, question, is there a charge for analytics? Unfortunately, yes, there is. I've just navigated over to our brochure website, protelprojects.com. There's a bit more information available there on analytics. We talk a bit about different ways in which you can use that. And yeah, there is a price list available. It's something that you can quite easily dip in and out of on a month-by-month basis. So do please take a look at that and let us know how you get on.
Yeah, if you want to talk any more, talk separately to us, Steve. It's absolutely fine. As I say, we tend to find that people might just use it once a year for forecasting, and that's absolutely fine. You can have a 1 month access, get all your data out, produce all your charts, and then if you then want to have a look at it again 6-12 months later, you can do.
So that's what's really good is, as Debbie said, you can export these charts. You just build on your criteria, which time period you want to look at, which sectors, which regions, whether you want to look at CapEx that's coming up for approval or CapEx that's actually currently being implemented. That's views that are available to you, and it spits these charts straight out, and they're nice and easy to get into your presentations and reports, etc. So, okay, we've got some questions coming in. We've got quite a few flowing in now, so we'll try and get to as many as we can, guys, in the time. But if you don't hear from us, then we'll get back in touch after the event.
We can quickly take Graham's because that's easy. Graham, no, there is no cost for the MyCRM functionality. That's completely free and within everybody's subscription, so you can use it. If you did go down the route of the CRM export we talked about, where it was going to export data into your package, then yes, there is a small nominal fee for that, because obviously there is some IT work that needs to be undertaken, and then there's delivery of the data. So if you wanted to talk about that, yes, but the MyCRM functionality, no, it's there for you to use. So you will have that button already when you log in next. You will have MyCRM sat there ready for you to use. Yeah,
it's all just sat there in the background ready to be applied by anyone. So there's no additional charge on your subscription there for the MyCRM features. Okay, so Debbie, question. Sensitivity levels. If asked, how did we find out the info about a project that we have contacted? Can we confirm from Protel a subscription service we use? Okay, so basically, what do we say if challenged when making our initial approach on a sensitive project? How would you recommend that people approach that, Debbie?
I think there's different ways. I mean, obviously, Mark, you'll know that there's high, low, and none. So there are different sensitivities attached to different projects. If something is low, you will find something about it in the public domain, whether that be a generic press release. If something is highly sensitive, you will probably find absolutely nothing at all, hence the sensitivity. And sensitivity is there because you will hit some resistance if you were to go steamrolling in and mention that project. So a highly sensitive project is, excuse the terminology, in my opinion, the sexiest project that we would have, because it's the earliest data, but you do need to be a little bit more tentative in your approach, Mark. So I mean, the thing to do is, have you already got sort of a contact on site that may be able to help you? Have they used you before? Can you go in on that basis, or are you going to have to go in cold? If you're going in cold, then obviously just be a little bit more tentative about how you approach. So a nice, very focused email or an initial call introducing your services until they talk to you about the project. But please don't see sensitivity as a sort of that highly sensitive. It is a red flag, but don't see it as a problem.
Yeah, and I think
because they are the best projects.
Yeah. Yes, they are. That's often where you'll see them being the most early, and as Debbie said, they are often the most appealing opportunities on there.
Yeah.
So don't ignore them. Don't be scared or put off by a highly sensitive project. I think the second part of your question there, is it okay to sort of confirm that it's information derived from a subscription service? I would say that's generally not the best idea. We do put this disclaimer on all of the project reports. Do not disclose your information source, and that's because obviously there is some sensitive information contained within MyProtel, but equally it's to help you guys on your initial approach, because in our experience, if you go in and you mention that, Protel have told me about this project, generally speaking, they're not going to want to talk to you about your products or services. They're not going to want to have a meeting and allow you to achieve your sales objectives. They're going to want to talk to you about Protel. Who are Protel? How did they find out about this project? So it tends to just get you off on the wrong foot, really, with that sales dialogue. So that's why we recommend it's best to avoid that. It's fine to be very general with your approach, and really it's best not to go into where you got that information from. And largely it doesn't really matter. It's not really for them to know that. That's your sort of ace up your sleeve, that you know this stuff, and that's why you work with us. So best to use that to your advantage.
If asked, Mark, I think a lot of people tend to say they were at a conference recently or they were at an exhibition and got wind of something and just, very, very generic, sort of play it down. You'll all be networking, but it doesn't do you any favours. It certainly doesn't do us any harm, but it doesn't do you any favours. So we would recommend that you don't mention Protel at all.
Okay, so we've got about 5 minutes left. So do feel free to submit any questions, guys, and we will try and get to you if we can today. But if not, we'll get back to you after the event. But another question here. This is a bit of a meaty one, so we might struggle to fit this all in, Debbie. But what can you do to increase your response rate from leads? There you go, $1 million question.
Oh wow!
Any tips there?
I think, as I touched on earlier, often it's about drilling down that data to very focused leads. So make sure that you sort of work through, you grade the opportunities, and in my opinion, less is more. There's no point trying to spread yourself too thinly and try and follow up 10 when in reality you've only got time to make 1 or 2 calls. So it's all about being very focused, actually apply all the filters, look at the keywords, look at the project, does it tick all the right boxes for you? If so, obviously respond. Now, historically, we would have always said pick up the phone and actually make that introduction via phone, but we also know that some people prefer to send an email and do have success from sending an email. So there's no right or wrong way, but all I would say is if you are doing an email, please make sure it is not a generic email. Please make sure you've got all this lovely information from Protel. Make sure it's very focused. Make sure you've done your homework. Have they got you on site? Who did they use? Do you have a competitive advantage? All of those things that you would consider if you were visiting. Make sure you apply all those principles when you're actually sending an email. Short, sharp, to the point, with a call to action. So, as I say, I don't like to tell anybody what to do, but that's where we see people have the most success. So they're relating to that that person they want to speak to. They're saying, right, this is how we can help you.
Exactly.
In a very sort of couple of lines, and then there's a call to action saying, I will call you in a couple of days to talk further. So emails work, telephone calls work. We all know that a lot of people hide behind voicemail, and it is all about persistence. You do have to just be like a dog with a bone, as I say, and just keep calling, and you will get through. So all of the tricks in the trade, really, just keep being persistent and being very focused. At the end of the day, most of you will subscribe because you want, for whatever reason, you want to increase your market share with new customers, you want to get more sales out of existing. There'll be a reason. How many leads do you need to be following up to meet that expectation? And when you start to drill down and look at it, actually the volumes you need are not as great as the volumes that you're seeing here. It's all about picking 1 or 2 key leads and working them really, really well.
precision and persistence are key, I think, is the summary there. I think that's an excellent bunch of tips there that hopefully everyone can have a think about how they're getting that sales dialogue off to a start, and how they can perhaps use these new features to help them be a bit more precise and really track your progression through. And I think, persistence definitely.
Persistence and do your homework. Don't see a lead on a Thursday morning, knee-jerk reaction, just pick up the phone. Just make sure you've done your homework. You wouldn't visit a customer without doing a bit of homework and preparing for that. So I would say apply the same principle whether you're calling or emailing. Just do your homework first and make sure that you've thought it all through and you know what you're trying to offer, and you're putting yourself in that end user's shoes rather than looking at it from your point of view.
Yeah, that's it. It's looking at the persona of the person that you're talking to. What are their challenges in their job? What are the issues and the pain points, as people often say, for that contact that you're trying to get in touch with? Because if you're able to solve a problem for them, make their life easier using your product or service, and I'm sure you all have a very long list of advantages of your products, look at those. Look at how those can match to your target prospect. And it's about being precise and doing your homework, as Debbie says. So hopefully that helps. Okay, so we've reached the 45-minute mark. So I think we'll probably have to end it there. I think we got to most of the questions. There might be a few of you that we just have to reach out to after the event, but we'll get in touch directly. A few points of order, sort of housekeeping stuff. Make sure you are following this news and analysis section on MyProtel on the homepage. It's also available, or rather it links to our blog over on the brochure website here. And what we're doing is we're putting a lot of very concise, kind of coffee break friendly, as we say, industry outlooks among the industries that we cover. We're just starting a new run of these now. We should hopefully be publishing our UK Food and Drink 2018 outlook next week. So that'll be hot off the press with lots of trends and analysis there from our research team to hopefully help you sort of planning and having a bit more of a bird's eye view of different industries. So make sure you follow on the blog. Those are also cross-posted to the MyProtel homepage, and they're down on the homepage just at the bottom here in the news and analysis section. If you have any questions or you need any help with your subscription, feel free to pick up the phone. That's why we put this phone number front and center on MyProtel, is that we always love to hear from our associates. We love to hear how you're using it, what's working, what's not working, so that we can help you get the best out of it. I think that's. Is there anything else you wanted to cover, Debbie?
I think that's it, guys. I mean, keep talking to us. No question is a silly question. Absolutely. No feedback is bad feedback. So please do get in touch. If you're struggling, don't sit and struggle. Just shout. We're here. We're happy to talk to you. And look forward to talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is this contact section on MyProtel, so feel free to use that. That goes to the account management team. And then if there's anything project related, as Debbie showed you earlier, use that Contact Protel about this project button, which is in the same toolbar as all the CRM stuff. So lots of ways to get in touch, and we do love to hear from you. So all that remains to be said really is thank you very much for your time. Thank you so much for all the really intelligent questions. It's always really nice to have a good back and forth on this stuff. And hopefully you find the CRM features useful. It's all very new, so please do let us know how you get on. We'd love to hear all about it. And thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, guys.